All right, then, guys. So we're gonna do the ultimate deck tier list. I mean, we have 20 tiers over here. We have tier 0, tier 1, tier 2. Then I'm gonna skip over to tier 5. So 5 and anything below that, like between 3 to 5. Then I'm gonna go to 10, anything between like 6 to 10. Then tier 15, anything between like 11 to 15. And then tier 20, the absolute worst decks that I can think of. These are all the decks that I have experience with. So I'm gonna go pretty fast because there's a lot of decks that we need to cover here. So if you watch the deck tier list and there's some decks that are missing in there, you're like, what happened to so and so deck? Why isn't that deck there? So in this video, we're gonna give a chance to those videos, those underrepresented video decks that are not shown in those tier lists. And this video idea came because in one of my previous videos I said that Spiral was tier 20 right now without master plan, so as a joke, and people thought it was funny, so I actually added tier 20 on this tier list, right? So yeah, let's get started. Don't forget to hit that like button. But yeah, let's go. And needless to say, Spiral, the first deck on this tier list, tier 20, so bad. You can open a full hand of Engine and still brick. It is one of the worst decks at the moment. Literally, even if you win the die roll, you get a very good hand. You still lose to any interruptions whatsoever. Even if there are no interruptions, you can still break on your hand. This deck is so bad, so bad. Please bring back Master Plan. Virtual World, this deck is actually decent. You can play through like stuff like Imperm Veiler pretty well, right? Those cards that a lot of people are citing right now. So in Virtual World, can set up Shen Shen, is very good versus Snake Eye. The versatility is insane. You can run such a diverse extra deck. So this deck is actually pretty good in the meta. So I'm gonna put this at tier 2. Pretty solid deck. Now we have Ninjas. Ninjas were good back when flipping a monster was actually relevant. Nowadays, people would just laugh in your face and say, sure, let me go ahead and keep extending. I don't care, right? So we're going to put Ninjas in tier 10 because it's still a solid deck, right? The trap cards are actually insane, being able to special summon multiple monsters. I mean, this deck is not bad. They just need another fusion monster and another like main deck monster that's decent, and the deck will be in a good spot. Cash Tira, sure, now they have Unicorn at 3. They can run Desires, Prosperity. Mind Hackers, unfortunately, still banned, right? A Rise card banned as well, but it's still consistent, big bodies, a lot of interruptions. So I'm going to put this actually at tier 1. Deck is very solid. Now we have Horus, just the pure deck. Now they have a field spell. You know, Empset is such an insane card, being able to get you to that continuous spell plus a draw. I mean, Empseti, the trap card is actually insane. The field spell is pretty good. I mean, this deck is very, very solid. They can run a lot of rank 8 in the deck. So very, very good. So I'll put this actually at tier 2. Not a bad deck. Blue Eyes. So Blue Eyes, they call it Break Eyes for a reason. You run a lot of normal monsters, a lot of big bodies that unfortunately make you break. Tier 20 up there with Spiral. So, but I mean, the art's pretty cool. So Rescue Ace is one of the top dogs at the moment, right? Being able to take advantage of the simple spoil engine. They can also run some like a small Snake Eye engine to give them more consistency, but the fact that they have a lot of trap cards in their deck, it's their bricks going second. So, but it's still a good deck, right? Tier 1, very, very good deck. So we have Orcust. Orcust, unfortunately, even with Harpour, is not doing anything. I don't see this deck topping tournaments anytime soon, right? The consistency is not there. People are debating whether to play Horrors, Dangers, you know, Pure. Doesn't matter. It's not going to top anything anytime soon. I'll put this tier 5. It's not the worst deck, right? Dynamorphia, being able to set up floodgates. Sometimes they just lose to an Ash Blossom, and it's unfortunate. They can play Ferret Flames, which that card is silly. But so I'm going to put this at, it's not the worst deck. I'll put this at tier 5. Ubel has Super Poly everywhere in the deck. I don't like playing against this deck because they're going to super poly you one way or another, right? So they're going to be getting more support, but we're rating it right now. Ubel is actually pretty decent. I'll put it at tier 2. Now we have Synchron. Synchron is insane because the Synchro 5 being able to spam the whole board, and then you can keep synchroing off It's actually insane. The only bad thing about this deck is that you have to play a lot of bricks, because that's how this like heavy combo decks are. They have a lot of moving pieces. So, but Synchron had a small time in popularity, but nobody plays it anymore, unfortunately. So they just imperm the Synchro 5. So I'm gonna put this tier 10. Honestly, deck is not very good. Invoke Dogmatica. This deck is silly, honestly. They lose to an Imperm, and Ash, Bell, a lot of cards. It used to be good 5 years ago. Nah, not even 5 years, more like 3 years ago. But right now, if your deck loses to one Imperm, not the best deck, right? So I'm gonna put this at tier 10. Now we have Mathmech without Circular. Konami, what were you thinking? What did Circular ever do to you? Joshua Schmidt paid you guys. How much money did they pay you, Konami? The ban made no sense, but I mean, I guess nobody really likes to play against a one card combo that sets up like monster plus trap card interruption, but I don't think it deserved the ban, to be honest. Mathmech, not a very good deck. I'll put this at tier 15, especially with that Circular. Magical Musketeers, this deck, even if you open Caspar plus like one or two trap cards or spell cards, the quick plays is not good enough. Caspar, if they needed to be at least like a 1900 attack, but now anything can run it, right? It has such a small attack. This deck is fun, but it sucks. Not good going first or going second, right? So I'm gonna put this tier 20. Honestly, this is fun, but it sucks. Dark World, Hand Loop Dark World. It's a scary deck. Loses to Shifter, loses to Droll, but this is the reason that we cannot ban Droll, because if Droll is banned, Dark World tier 0, right? It loses to Droll, but if Droll gets banned for whatever reason, you can expect a Dark World meta. They're gonna be tearing things up, but I mean, they can hand loop you for 5, very easy. But if they don't go that route, they can set up like Nightmare Griffin, a full board of negates. One of those decks that honestly makes me glad that we have stuff like Shifter and Joel. So, but honestly, this deck is pretty good. So I'm gonna put this tier 2. They're not in order, right? So there are tier 2, but I don't want to like rank, which is the best tier 2. No, they're just tier 2. So, Tri Brigade, not very good at the moment. You can mix it up with like Fire King and stuff like that. But I played this deck. It's decent, honestly. Like Omen is still such an insane card. They need the Link 3 that's currently banned, the Simorgh, to come back to even have a chance. But at this point, it's not really good. I'm gonna put this at tier 5. It can still win games. Appaloosa plus Revolt plus Hand Traps, still pretty good, right? It's still pretty good. TG, another Calamities deck, but it's not like Centurion or anything like that. It's like a worse version of Centurion. This got overhyped, so I'll put this at tier 10 on tier 10. I don't think it's very good. Dragon Link, this deck was decent when Tier was still around, but the fact that Tier is not around means that Bestials, like if you build like your whole deck Bestials, is not, if you go up against like Snake Eyes, like what are you gonna do there, right? So but it's still good, but it's nowhere near where it once was. Tier 5. Infinite Noble Knight, it sold it, hurt a lot. It hurt a lot, right? He sold it was like the heart and soul of the deck. Now you can't even run Phoenix Blade. All these cards that were good with the soul, they're bad now. So now people are playing it with different engines, right? The Flame Swordsman. But yeah, I don't think this deck is very good. I'm gonna put this at tier 10, right alongside the TG. Now we have the Stun deck. There's a very popular stun deck going around. People play like Fossil Dyna, Inspector Border, all the statues, just to prevent the opponent to do anything, basically, right? They play like Synchro Zone, where like only Synchros can attack. They play the Dogmatica card that protects monsters from being destroyed. So it's an annoying deck, right? That makes you want to main deck Droplet and Imperm. But yeah, I'll put this. I think it's just gimmicky. they can steal games though, but going second is the thing. Like, how are you gonna win going second, right? So, put this at tier 10, only because it can still steal games. Sword Soul hasn't lost anything. They only lost Protos, but aside from that, they're full power, right? But even full power, like, oh, let me just set up an imperm and a Baron, right? And that's it. Like, maybe a trap card. Not a good end board, right? Not a good end board. Put this at tier 5. We have the Goblin deck. It's another XYZ deck. Pretty good. Pretty good. I think we need the other cards that are gonna come out. The more support for this deck to be relevant as it is right now. I'm gonna put this at tier 10. Zodiac, blind second. Zodiac, not good. You lose to a princess, Promethean princess. It's not tier 20, but it's definitely tier 15. Salamangreat is not a bad deck, but guess what? Your best end board is a Nibiru token. The story is still the same, right? It's like watching an anime from 10 years ago. You know how it's gonna end, right? Nothing has changed. The story is still the same. You're gonna be staring at a 0 defense token because your link monsters have no defense. So, but I mean, it's good. It can OTK, but I'll put it at tier 5. Marin says, unfortunately, they haven't got any like broken support like fire decks have. Still a 1-card deck, 1-card combo deck, but even your best end board is not the best. So I'll put these at tier 5. Honestly, right there with Salamangreat. Alter Guys keeps getting support, but for some reason Konami wants to make them a freaking combo deck. Like, what? Give them more trap cards, give them more floodgates, more stuff like that, more control things, right? Don't give them freaking, oh yeah, let me go ahead and U-link my opponent. Like, what? Like, what are you doing, Konami? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, I feel like Konami takes some heavy lines right before making any support for any decks, and it's like, what? Why did we come up with that? Like, we don't know, you don't know, nobody knows. But anyways, Alter Guys, tier 15. We have the Fur Hire deck. Fur Hire, the deck is decent, right? They can set up like multiple pops, monster negate, spell trap card negate, a lot of draws, but the fact that you don't get a battle phase hurts a lot. So you need your battle phase, guys. Come on. But it's not the worst deck. I'll put this at tier 2. I don't think it's bad. Runic Stun is an annoying deck. I actually lost against this deck at the regionals. I was not ready for Runic Stun, right? Like, my side wasn't ready for it, my main wasn't ready for it, and I ended up losing to this deck, unfortunately. Like, oh yeah, who wants to stare at an opponent that's playing Runic Stun? Nobody does. But I can see why this deck wins games though, right? I can see why it does. So I'll put this tier 5. Loses to a Cosmic Cyclone if they don't open like good enough. Sure, they have a lot of ways to stop it, but if they don't, then Cyber Dragon tier 20. Konami, please give them a Link 1. They need a Link 1, right? A Link 1 that searches machine duplication, but you can only use like a level 1 Cyber Dragon monster, something along those lines. So give them a Link 1. That's the only thing that will save this deck. This deck is not good going first or second. Like, what are you good at then? It was gimmicky back in the days. Back in like toss format, it was decent, but you know, that was a long time ago. Exorcister is good because they can play Shifter, but unfortunately their board loses to like stuff like Evenly, stuff like that. They lose to Super Poly as well, so they can't lose to Nibiru also. So they have a lot of silver bullets. So I'm gonna put this at tier 10. Honestly, I'm sorry. I know that, you know, Martha is love, Martha is life, right? But Martha is also tier 10, unfortunately. But yeah, now we have Plunder Patrol. Plunder Patrol is mainly used with stuff like the Brave package or the Runic package, right? Or they play both, like Runic and the Brave stuff. I mean, this deck is decent. I mean, the end board is not really good, honestly. Like, even like their best hands is like just get a couple of draws and that's it. Try to draw into like rivalry or something along those lines. So I don't really like this deck that much. Unfortunately, I'm gonna put this at tier 15. Honestly, like even the best end board is not that good. So tier limit. Tier limit is one of those decks that they can make Dweller easily. If they mill good enough, they can beat almost any deck. So I mean, tier limit, I'm surprised people are not playing this deck more, right? With the like horror stuff is pretty good. I mean, Konami, I feel like if Kid Kalos came back, like if they say, you know what, we're gonna limit Kid Kalos, I feel like this deck would dominate the meta again. Just with a simple one Kid Kalos, this deck would like take every deck easily. So, but I must say tier 1, honestly. This deck is solid, making Dweller, Baguska, OT Kane super easily. You can play like Underworld, the Goddess, to like combat things like Nor. So deck is pretty good. Exodia, you know, Jeff Leonard unfortunately sold, they got banned. So I don't think there's any like good Exodia decks anymore, unfortunately. So yeah, tier 20. Right now they're getting more support, but Konami is like, you know what, we should make this a combo deck. Yeah, let's make this a combo deck, guys. Like, wouldn't it be crazy if we make Exodia into a combo deck? Like, what? Poof. Konami makes no sense sometimes. Labyrinth is honestly one of the most versatile decks in all of Yu-Gi-Oh, right? All of the normal trap cards, you know, is basically another option that they can play, right? Anything, right? So deck is solid. They can play D-Barrier. They can play Compulsory. They can play a lot of things, right? Eradicator. So I'm going to put this at tier 1, honestly. I do think that their side deck is one of the scariest things in the game, right? So Trap Tricks was good back when it was Kashtira format. They can just like Book of Moon, the Kashtira cards. Right now it's still decent, right? It's still decent. Like, it's a budget deck. If you're playing a budget deck, I actually think this deck is solid, right? You have a good, like, you can play a lot of rank 4s. You can play like Dweller, Bagushka, stuff like that. So I don't think it's the worst option, but I'm gonna put this at tier 5. I think it's not. Yeah, tier 5. Flu, tier 1. A lot of people hate me when I say this, but you know, playing Shifter, having an endless engine, doesn't matter what happened. The ability to be able to basically give yourself a top deck. If you want Harpy's Feather Storm, you can basically put it at the top of your deck with Mega Raiza and then draw it with Unexplored Winds, or just draw it for turn. It's kind of insane if you think about it. You can basically like Yara Garatsu the opponent by putting a card at the top of their deck, so now they can't win the game anymore. They can't top deck into anything good because you know what the top deck is. So I mean, this deck is good, right? It's really good. It only loses 2 hand traps, but if you don't draw the right hand traps at the right time, you lose, right? Like if they're able to dodge your imperm, if they're able to play around the draw, then you lose. So Sky Strikers, not good going first, not good going second. They need that new support, and even with the new support, I don't think. Maybe Engage to 3 plus the new support might give them something, but as of right now, like this very moment, tier 15, so bad, unfortunately. But Live Twin is, you know, they can play with the Runic, they can play just with a lot of hand traps, but at tier 10, I don't think it's good. Heroes are actually good. Blind Second, being able to play Super Poly, and when they get to go first, they can play Dark Law. Basically a shifter on legs, kind of insane, only for the opponent. So I think honestly this deck is slept on, but I'm gonna put this at tier 5. I don't think it deserves a tier 2. I mean, unless you're like a really good hero player, then it can go up from there. But if you're like an average hero player, then tier 5. Vanquish Soul, they can play a lot of hand traps. But if you don't see Raisin, then you're not winning that game. So I'll put this at tier 10. This deck it's not the best, honestly, guys. Madolche is gonna be tier 15. I mean, if they draw well enough, like being able to non-target shuffle monsters is pretty good, but I don't think that's gonna win you the match, honestly, right? People are gonna see what you're playing and just hand trap you and you lose. If people know what to hand trap against this deck, you're not winning the game. You're not winning the game. It's so easy once you know what to hit to beat this deck. So, but yeah, Manadium, they can turn skip the opponent with calamities, or they can just go like a wide board. But either way, with all the hand traps going around, I don't think Manadium's gonna be able to set anything up. So, tier 5. Super heavy samurai. That you can't play board breakers. You can build a pretty big board going first. Going second, you have a lot of hand traps, but they don't have anything unfair anymore. They can't do any shenanigans with Cyberstein or anything like that. So, and the fact that Konami was like, you know what we should do? Let's release support for super heavy samurai, but let's ban out their best card in the following list, right? Konami just does these moves. It's like, whoa, how have you guys not gone broke, honestly? But yeah, I'm gonna put this tier 2. Like, I think it's decent. Like, a lot of non-engine, good going first. Grand Module, blind second, loses to everything in the book. It's fun though if you're able to OTK the opponent with Grand Module in 2024. Then you deserve a round of applause. But it's hard. Let me just tell you that you lose to a lot of things. Imperm on Grand Module when you're declaring an attack. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, never again. Misk, Dinos is not a bad deck, right? Being like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, being able to OTK the opponent. It's a pretty good, but they don't have anything unfair in my opinion, right? The combo version of Dinos is not good. You have to run a lot of bricks. So yeah, I'll put this in tier 15, honestly. Goki, tier 20, no more Isolde means you're tier 20, right? Lyrilisk, you can play Zeus. You know, you can search DD Crow. Zeus is your best bet, but then you get hit with your good old Promethean Princess and you lose. So I'll put this at tier 20. I've tried different versions of Lyrilisk. They're all bad. Snake Eyes, tier 0. This is Snake Eyes pure. You can play so many hand traps. 15, 17. On the main deck. Post side deck, we're looking at almost 20 hand traps. Good luck winning that. So deck is insane. Can play through so much. Can OTK so easily. Promethean Princess plus the Sinful Spoil stuff plus the Snake Eye stuff. All of those things combining into one thing. A lot of non-engine. Yeah. So it's a pretty rough deck to play against. Fire King, Snake Eye also at the top. Kirin is such a good card. It's almost like a Call by the Grave. Veiler, Chain Kirin, popping your own monster, dodging the Imperm, the Veiler. Such a good card. Non-targeting pop. An absolutely insane card. Well-designed card in my opinion. Konami, I'll give you props for that, right? I've been bashing you this whole video, but you get props for that thing. But don't expect it. Don't expect it for a long time, okay? But you do get props for that. Sprite, right? We're looking at, Runic Sprite, Hand Trap Sprite, Melfi Sprite. The card is decent. The deck is decent. Making OTK with stuff like Mosquito and stuff like that. I don't think it's a bad deck, honestly. Tier 2. Prank Kids without Meow Meow means that you have to draw into 2 kids plus Poly. Yeah, not the best position to be in. Tier 20. Pearly is a good deck. Going first, you set up Nor plus hand traps or floodgates. Going second is either Zeus or just Happiness. Get a bunch of searches. So not a bad deck, but Promethean Princess can still be a little bit annoying. You have to have the field spell up if you want to do anything. So I'll put this at tier 2. I think it lost a lot of shine, especially with all the imperms, Ash, Valors going around. It hurts this deck a lot. So Branded is one of the few decks, non-fire decks, that can honestly just beat the Snake Eyes inboard, right? Because they play like Branded Fusion, Thrust, Talents, all these cards that are board breakers, right? And like activating Lost means that your opponent has to do something, because otherwise you're just gonna be able to tear the whole board apart without you being able to respond, right? So yeah, I would say Branded is tier 0, honestly. Like, they can take games off of like any deck here, right? Like Mirror J times 3, or if you're playing against something like Flu, you set up like Dragostopelia or the Borlo Dragon that pops. You're able to pop the field spell, so it has a lot of versatility. Doesn't fold to Shifter. Deck is honestly pretty solid. Rika right now is in a bad spot. The limits were actually kind of huge now that I think about it. So we need the new support to test it out to see how good it's gonna be. I mean, this is in America. In Europe, it might be different, but Konami for some reason doesn't want to give Europe YCSs. Maybe, hear me out, they don't want to see Rika top. Conspiracy? You never know, right? But I'll put this at tier, it's not the worst, right? They can still set up a pretty big board, but tier 2. Voiceless Voice is a decent deck. I'll put it over here, right? Low is a pretty well designed card in my opinion. The trap card is pretty good. With the new support, it's gonna get a lot more consistent. They're gonna be able to like shuffle their stuff back. So, but right now, Voiceless Voice, I think it's tier 1, right? I think it's tier 1. So Ravius being able to like negate a summon or protect your low from being targeted, pretty good. Subterror Guru, you can play this with Dragoon, you can play Shifter in this deck, but even with all that, you still belong in the trash, right? I used to play this deck a lot. It's one of my first decks that I got into the game with, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I need to play an easy deck. So I started playing Guru Control, but it's so bad. Scareclaw, not in a good spot at the moment. Yeah, not in you have to play a lot of bricks, right? So I'll put this tier 15, not good. Drytron, all these hand traps, Imperm, Ash, Valor, Nib, they hurt this deck a lot. They can't really play through that. And guess what? If you ever decide to start topping, if you ever say, you know what, I'm gonna start topping some events, you know what Snake Eye and Fire King are gonna do to you? They're gonna be able to play Droll in the main deck. They're gonna be playing like all the Drytron hate, and you're never gonna top an event again, right? Because they have 15 to 20 open spots in their deck to basically make it so you never play the game again. So imagine playing like 9 Bestials or something like that. That's something that Snake Eyes could do. So Drytron, I mean, their end boards can get pretty scary, right? I mean, but I feel like they need Ava to come back for them to do anything. So, but right now, not in a good spot. Tier 15. Mikanko, the gimmick of like, oh, I don't know what these cards do, I'm just gonna go ahead and crash into them and just commit Sudoku. No, people are reading these cards now, right? And now that they don't have Isolde anymore, they can like acid golem the opponent or something cheesy like that. So yeah, people are gonna read these cards and gonna realize, hey, I shouldn't attack this, right? Or I can't target this. I'm just gonna go ahead and do something else to get rid of it. So tier 15, Punk, it's a decent deck, right? The whole gimmick about like paying life points or being able to run like emergency teleport. Emergency teleport is like full combo, but you have to play a lot of bricks. The trap cards are bricks. Even the end board, like the full end board, is not really that scary. So yeah, I'm gonna put this at tier 10. I'm never gonna be scared of a Punk player, in my opinion, right? So, but yeah, Do you guys agree with this tier list? I'm pretty happy the way it turned out. Do you disagree? Where would you change the deck? Where would you put it? But yeah, as always, guys, it was Yara here, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.